March is Women's History Month, and this year marks the 150th anniversary of Utah women being the first in the nation to vote. Utah women have and continue to make history. On this week's episode of Capital City News, we hear from one of our very own Utah women leaders, Lisa Shaffer, Chief Administrative Officer for Salt Lake City. And our History Minute is about Houdini and his great Salt Lake City escape. Let's get started with our legislative update and look back.
At its March 3rd meeting, the City Council adopted the first ever Foothill Trails Master Plan. Heard a presentation from the Public Lands Division as the first step toward the city's first ever comprehensive public lands master plan, and heard public comment on a variety of issues, including the design standards of the Sugar House Business District. To learn more, visit slc.gov/council.
Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall kicked things into high gear at her first State of the City address at Meadowlark Elementary. The mayor outlined both short and long-term plans to propel the city forward, including creating more sustainable practices for a green future, cleaner air, accessible transit, affordable housing, economic development, and the launch of Tech Lake City.
Together, we'll take steps today that guarantee our city is ready for the next generation to succeed.
Salt Lake City is growing and is expected to keep growing, but that growth brings challenges. How can we keep Salt Lake a prosperous, livable place for all? The city's bright future could be dimmed without investing more in our critical public services, housing, transit, street conditions, and public safety. Because of the long-lasting effects of the Great Recession on city resources, competition with other priorities, and years of frugal budgeting, Salt Lake City has many unfunded critical needs. To address this, Salt Lake City considered all available financing options, and city officials determined two to be the most viable. First, increasing the city's portion of sales tax, and second, asking voters to consider approving a general obligation bond. The sales tax increase has generated about $34 million a year in ongoing funding, and it is the first part of a funding strategy to address the city's critical needs. This new dedicated bond funding allows the city to address our most deteriorating streets, and when paired with the new sales tax revenue for streets and maintenance, will enable us to prolong the life of our entire street network. There are several Funding Our Future projects and programs funded by Salt Lake City and local community partners for each critical need area. On the Funding Our Future dashboard, residents can track how new revenue is being spent, how projects and programs are being implemented, and progress toward goals. By creating more affordable housing options, providing safer neighborhoods, and connecting residents and businesses to better transit and complete streets, we can ensure that our capital city remains a prosperous, livable place for all. Learn more and submit questions at fundingourfutureslc.com.
During the month of March, Salt Lake City celebrates its women leaders. And as the third female mayor of Salt Lake City, Mayor Erin Mendenhall has created a team of women leaders, including Lisa Shaffer, Chief Administrative Officer for Salt Lake City. On this week's episode of Capital City News, Lisa shares her story about her role and what she does for Salt Lake.
Hi, I'm Lisa Shaffer. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for Salt Lake City Corporation. Salt Lake City hasn't had this position since 2008, and the mayor has asked me to take on this role in order to translate her policy direction into all of the departments. The Chief Administrative Officer is more internally focused, and the Chief of Staff to the mayor is more externally focused. And so when that position collapsed into one in 2008, what was missing is probably a focus on the internal workings of the city and more of a focus on the external workings. And that was a function of budget and just a really difficult economic downturn in 2007 and 2008 that necessitated some collapsing of roles within the city. What residents should expect is that the inner workings of City Hall need to be efficient and to operate at their optimum in order to be responsible to them as taxpayers for the services that we provide. And so what they should expect from me is that I will coordinate all of the different departments to make sure that they are doing their job in the best way they can possibly do it, in the most efficient way they can possibly do it, in order to deliver the services that they're paying for as taxpayers. So far, my days have been spent really learning about the needs of the department and how they can best execute any mayoral directive. And so the information from the departments floating up is massive and overwhelming, and the information that we're trying to disseminate down from a policy perspective is still in its infancy and being formed. And so right now, a lot of my day is spent taking the mayor's 100-day plan, taking the first year plan, and finding ways to plug in those policy directives into the departments, while also listening to them and being responsive to them about what they need. We're also entering into the budget season, and so I'm fielding questions from departments about budget needs and budget asks and budget directive, and all of that really is policy driven. And so I am translating what the mayor wants to do with her budget into their work groups, and hopefully they can that helps them formulate a more effective budget. What residents care about are things like, when's my street gonna be repaved? When is my park lawn gonna be mowed? Why is my ball field kind of trashy, but this other one is good? When is my garbage gonna be collected? And how can I know when those things are being done efficiently and effectively? And how can I know that the taxpayer dollars that I'm giving to the city are being used for the purposes that I want them to be used for? And so I am actually working on an initiative to make sure that we can have that kind of transparent dialogue, so to speak, with residents about how their initiatives are being executed throughout City Hall and throughout all of our departments. There are a few ways in which citizens are asked to participate, and we always encourage ground level participation. So get involved in your community council meetings, in your community councils, volunteer, show up to council meetings. The mayor has scheduled time to meet with residents where they can be heard. And in the future, actually right now we have Open City Hall where we can have a dialogue with residents online, and oftentimes there will be surveys. And I just encourage our residents to participate in every way possible. We use that data and we use that feedback to help make informed decisions for them.
And now it's time for our History Minute.
Harry Houdini's magic career began with little fanfare. He wasn't a particularly gifted sleight of hand artist or a traditional magician, but his daring escapes quickly became the stuff of legends. By 1900, he was touring the world as a renowned illusionist and escape artist. In December of 1915, he performed one of his most daring stunts in Los Angeles, California. Challenged by the local newspapers to prove his tricks were real, the LA Fire Department dangled him from a building while he performed a straitjacket escape. Not to be outdone, Salt Lake City challenged him to do the same when he arrived for his engagement just a few weeks later at the Orpheum Theater. With the help of the Salt Lake City Police and Fire Departments, Houdini chose a much larger building for the site of his next big escape, the Walker Center building. With thousands of Salt Lakers watching on their lunch hour, the fire department dangled Houdini from the top of the building to the height of the 4th floor. Firefighters held a safety net and trampoline on the ground below just in case the worst happened. Naturally, Houdini escaped the straitjacket and was lowered into the crowd. He became the talk of the town, and the rest of his engagement at the Orpheum, now called the Capitol Theater, sold out for the rest of the year. Never again would Salt Lakers forget the name of Harry Houdini.
Thanks for watching another episode of Capital City News. As we celebrate Women's History Month here in Salt Lake City, there are free community concerts that are happening down at the Gallivan Center each week to celebrate local women artists. So if you get a chance, check it out every Wednesdays starting at 7:30 p.m. at the Gallivan Center. Thanks for watching this week's episode of Capital City News. For SLCtv, I'm Poonam Kumar.